what would you suggest as some of the best practices for implementing your AI tool in in a, let's say, a large organization with a diverse group of employees?
Well, once again, I think you have to start off as to what your goals are, what you're looking to achieve, what roles are you focused on at starts, and then we like to view ourselves as complementary to the programs that you already have. You don't have to really recreate anything, but as John has indicated throughout this podcast, knowing what a good conversation looks like, so those things all tie together, and because in the end, all this training is leading to your interaction with some endpoint, whether it's with a customer or servicing a customer, selling to them, whether you're a manager giving performance reviews. So those are we look at those specific objectives as a way to highlight what can get achieved at a large company and to do that at scale.
Awesome.
One of the
Uh,
challenges of a large organization with a diverse population is, I'll call it company culture. With a diverse population, you have, in a sense, a broader spread of cultural influences within the organization. So when you're doing this kind of role play practice, you want to make sure that every group feels included. And that means that the model for good performance is modeled by people who look like, sound like them, the learners. And you want to make sure that those models and the people they're interacting with vary. Because not all of, no one in a diverse organization is going to, by definition, be the same as everyone above or below them in the org chart.
Absolutely.
So you need to ensure that you've got a real mix of types of people. And I think this is a piece that's often missed, is the way that people talk also has to be diverse. You have to accept a broader range of verbal expression, use of idioms, and you can't just expect everyone to speak, what you might call broadcast neutral style, language. You want to have, the folks from each region and the folks from various cultures be able to speak in their natural language while conveying those ideas, asking those questions, taking that perspective, and not feel like they have to hide who they really are.
True. What has been your current success with regards to industry verticals or specific client personas and market segments?
We really do see a broad application here, and we've been fortunate enough in the early part of our journey here to work with some good companies here, and for us, we work directly with corporations, but the other things that we do is partner with coaching firms that really are already providing a service, and they typically understand what the value of this, and this allows them to focus on the higher value coaching that really makes the difference. The other area is in the e-learning publishers. They're starting to look for ways to add interactive components to their learning publications, provide a more of a continuous learning model where they can release new situations that's tied to the video lesson or the PowerPoint lesson or however they're presenting that. And now, once again, bringing the practice element, bringing all the components that we've talked about in terms of top performer conversations. So you're really setting the standard high. And you know, in that world, you know, people that buy online education products are aspiring professionals. They're willing to put the time in to get better. And this just provides another tool to that market. So, you know, in whole, it's, you know, we're seeing a lot of ways that this can be used. We've also had some experiences with call center companies that monitor calls. With those, what kind of conversations are those people having? And can they improve that? And, you know, we can work with those conversations and use them in our system and retrain people to have better conversations in there. So it's pretty broad spectrum in terms of use cases across the industry. And we really haven't found a vertical that doesn't fit. I mean, what industry do you think doesn't need better communication skills?
Exactly. Exactly.
So, you know,
Absolutely.
we picked a pretty wide vertical, if you want to call it that, or a
Yeah.
wide horizontal.
Totally. Totally.
Maybe I'm jumping ahead a little bit here, but you know, when we look at how the market is evolving,
Mm.
you know, I haven't seen it recently, but a couple of years ago, YouTube was advertising a lot as a learning company.
Mm.
They were advertising how, you know, this woman changed careers and learned all the skills on YouTube and so forth. And the learning and development environment has become much more complex.
Oh.
And there are a lot more players, and people are doing a lot of their learning what we might call informally. They go to you know, Reddit or Stack Exchange or YouTube or just Google or Chat GPT to find out what's happening, you know, in a particular field and what skills they, you know, tell me about, you know, what I need to do if I'm going to, you know, have a tough conversation with a client, right?
Mm.
So where people access these are also going to evolve. And there will always be a need for human teachers, human coaches. That's an important link that is not going to go away. But the tools that are available to them, whether they are in a corporate environment, whether they are in a, you know, an e-learning provider, whether they're a professional association that trains its members, we see all of those as an opportunity for interactive role play. And, you know, that's, I think, the challenge for us, and the opportunity is make this easy for L&D professionals to create content and deliver content in an experiential learning cycle, and anyone out there can use it.
Awesome. So, since, as you rightly said, that these categories are emerging and markets are evolving to the use of this, if you were to pinpoint a few, where do you foresee the highest potential for making use of this AI tool for role play?
It's, I think, and I'm not trying to waffle here. There are many different ways to define the market. You can define it by the type of training. You can define it by who's delivering it. You can define it by how it's being delivered, whether on an e-platform or you know, in person and so forth. And the market in corporate training and development is very complex for that reason. And that's why there are no like 800-pound gorillas in the room, because there are so many niches. If you're in pharmaceuticals, pharmaceutical training platforms have regulatory requirements.
Right.
And, you know, that changes the nature of what's going to work there versus, you know, anywhere else. And so, you know, we really believe that the challenge for an organization like us and for other learning delivery methods is, where are the learners, and how do you How do you reach them? And, we want to be a utility. We want to be interactive role play for everyone. And we don't want to compete with the LMS vendors. We don't want to be a coaching firm and compete with you, DJ, and others. We want to be a tool that the LMSs can use, that you can use, that the e-learning providers can use. So right now, we're still early stage. This is a very early point in this generation of AI, the first really public and visible use of AI since it started being applied, many years ago in smaller domains. And it's unclear how those things are going to evolve. And so, we're, as John mentioned, the e-learning providers, large corporations, and, coaching firms, those are three areas where we're very focused, and we have a lot of faith that those are going to be important markets. But we don't believe they're the only ones.
Okay, very rightly said. Please provide your take from your perspective on the benefits of AI-based role play solutions like yours vis-a-vis the traditional methods for workforce development.
We did we've been working with the University of North Carolina,
Mm-hmm.
and we've done some interesting work with them in being able to measure learning transfer, where it's being used in a course that is in the School of Management, and it's in organizational ethics. And the course teaches students a framework for ethical behavior in the workplace with 9 core concepts that they need to apply when they're faced with a potential ethical dilemma in the workplace. And our tool is being used for doing role play, where students get to interact with situations that are very realistic in a potential workplace situation. And what we have found is that some concepts are very readily applied. So students very readily recognize the ethical dilemma in the situation, and they take the right position on that ethical dilemma. They take, however, much longer and require a lot of feedback before they incorporate the need, for example, to build a good relationship with the person that they're in conflict with, even though that's being taught in the classroom, just the same as the need to take the right ethical stance. We expected this, but it jumps out in the data. After they practice and get feedback, we can see that they start to apply it more readily because they've been given feedback, and they start to internalize the need to maintain a good relationship with people that they're going to have to continue to work with again and again while they resolve this ethical dilemma. So the benefit of this kind of role play is not just to the learner, although it's clear from that data that the benefit to the learner is real. If they were just to leave the classroom and go into the workplace, yes, they would know the right thing to do, but they might be throwing their coworkers under the bus at first and not really successfully navigating the ethical dilemma. So we're more confident that the role play with feedback, deliberate practice, leads to a better set of behaviors that they demonstrate more readily after they've practiced a number of times. And I'm going to go one step further. It also teaches us something about the curriculum that we're using. The professor who's teaching this class can put a greater focus on the need to have good relationships and doesn't need to spend as much time talking about the ethical dilemma itself, because the students get that right away. I'm going to add one more thing. We also studied the relationship between in-class rank and their ability to apply those skills in conversation. And other than a few students at the very bottom of the class, there was no relationship between class rank and conversational performance. The students who were in the bottom half of the class were no worse at applying these skills than the students at the top of the class. There were top students who were actually pretty poor at putting the skills to work, and students who didn't score well who were very good at putting those skills to work. And if you think about people you know in the workplace, there are those who excelled in their academic life, but struggled in the work world. And those who did not have stellar academic careers, but have been very successful in the working world. And maybe, there's a lesson here for learning and development that classroom knowledge doesn't necessarily lead to on-the-job performance, and that we need to think about on-the-job performance as something that needs to be measured independently of classroom work.
Yeah, there was a lot of good stuff to unpack in that.
Yes, super.
And we could probably have a separate podcast on
I agree.
how we learn.
Maybe as a follow-up to this. So, as we are nearing towards the end of this podcast, what message would you like to convey specifically to the learning and development folks that are evaluating various AI-based solutions for practice and learning some skills in their organization?
So I think that there is clearly a lot going on, right? I mean, you've got the chatbots and the practice apps and the simulators and the role play stuff. I think you want to look at sort of two dimensions to any solution. And then there's a third thing that I'll get to in a moment. The two dimensions you want to look at are how well does it scale?
Mm-hmm.
In other words, cost per person. And how effective is it? Can you measure its effectiveness? So, if every employee could get 5 hours of BJ's time every month, that would be like ideal, right? Super effective, highest quality. But if that company has 10,000 employees, I don't even need to get out my calculator to know that that is not going to work, right? So that's great for certain executives, but it's not going to work for everyone. And that's why scale is so important. Can you, with the budget you have, or a slightly larger budget, or playing budget games, make this available to a large number of people? And does it work? Does it actually develop skills? And can you see that? Obviously, the third thing is what skills are being developed, right? And I think that there are, several things that you need to look at. So there are chat-based coaching bots, right? That may help people think through things on their own. That's a cognitive skill. That is not an interpersonal skill, and it's
not a behavioral skill.
It's not a behavioral skill.
Yeah, right.
But it's still a skill, and it's still something people ought to have. You should be able to reflect. You should be able to think through these situations. That's important before you act, and absolutely essential. There are practice apps that allow you to practice your pitch. And they look for things like fluency and filler words and tone. And that's great if you want people to do presentations that are going to be compelling on stage, and they won't be filled with, like words and sudden failures of what am I going to say? In our case, though, filler words actually play a role in conversation, and they're okay. They're not something that actually should be eliminated from your casual interpersonal conversations. So, we're focused on the content of what you say, the ideas you're conveying, the perspective you're taking on issues, and that's another. So you need to choose the tool according to the skill you're trying to develop, and it can sometimes be a little bit difficult because not everyone is completely clear about what their AI is specifically designed for, and you need to make sure that that's clear. So just taking it back up to the top level for the L&D professionals who are looking at an AI solution, cost and effectiveness are really important, and obviously that's going to that your trade-off is going to depend on your budget and your audience and so forth. But you need to know where you want to be there, and what specific skill or set of skills are you trying to develop. There is no general purpose intelligence AI out there that can do all the things.
True.
Right? What we have are purpose-built AIs that do one or two things specifically. And that's what you need to understand. Where does that fit into your organization's learning goals?
Very nicely said, John. Thanks. John Muldoon, would you like to chime in for the viewers? Anything in addition to what John had said?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, as I said earlier, I think, these are challenging times. They're changing times. They're, your plate just got loaded up again. I think that evaluation criteria and process that John talked about is, that's not a 1 or 2 day thing. And I think when you do go out and start that mission, you're going to find that there'll be the propensity to be oversold on capabilities of AI that certain vendors may have. We're very specific around what we provide, and it's been outlined in here. And we do think we have a very high value utility that, most organizations and coaching firms are going to want as part of their solution set. And then once you go through that analysis, where do I apply that? Where do I apply my practice room, my safe practice room, my safe deliberate practice room? And then, where do I want to get those, real analytics around, the conversational skills? You mentioned pharma early on, right? Really tough requirements in terms of what you deliver and what you say. And, the extension of the L&D world is the HR world, right? There's really, and we're seeing more of this in terms of companies that are coming to us, but the compliance function, HR, managers, you say the wrong thing in an interview, you say the wrong thing in a performance review, and there could be legal liabilities, right? So there's lots of things to think about. And in the end, I think many companies will be driven by cost, right? And what's the most bang for the buck I can get here? And that kind of drives you into our corner where we say, we'll start with conversations first, right? Because there's power in the delivery of words, right? And when they're used correctly. And we're happy to be a part of this, this evolution. Maybe it's part of a revolution in the industry. And, we're happy to be able to work with yourself, BJ, and others like you that are, your agents of change. And as it's hard to do. And, you have your established business model. And how do I make that adjustment, right? And it takes extra work. but when you do, the rewards can be there. And you know, those are for the people that want to take the bigger steps now.
Totally. That's super fantastic. John Muldoon, John Hack, thanks a lot for your time this morning, and thanks for sharing your valuable insights for our viewers. Thank you.